Good day to you, Guyana, and welcome to another edition of Facing the Nation. I am Malika Ramsey. Thank you so very much for joining us. Last week when we were here, I promised you that yes, this is the final Friday in Education Month in our country, and I did promise you we will be focusing on the education sector, and I'm happy to be doing that today. I'm happy that our final program for the month of September is ending on a positive note because I remind people that we started off Education Month 2018 on not such a good note. We had the confusion with the Guyana Teachers Union and the Ministry of Education. And again, we have seen some amount of progress there where there was a solution. I trust that does not change. But again, we're happy to be having of course, he's no stranger to this program, the Vice Chancellor of the University of Guyana. To remind you, the University of Guyana is our highest learning institution, our most senior learning institution in this country. So it is always wonderful when we can have these constant updates from the Vice Chancellor of the University of Guyana, Professor Ivelaw Griffith. And on that note, I welcome him back to our program. Welcome, sir.
Delighted to be back, and I hope this is not the only time for this year. I'll be back.
No, we have.
If I'm invited back, I'll be back.
You certainly will be because, and that's what I'm saying. One of the reasons we're always happy to embrace you is because every time you come with fresh things. And again, I know viewers get tired of hearing me say this, but Professor Griffith, I know it's not just about him. He has an entire team, but Professor Griffith is a breath of fresh air for the University of Guyana. And despite what you want to say, I know some of those new students, the first year students, they have gone into an institution that, somewhere in their minds, they expected things to be perfect, but it's not. But I can tell you, I entered the University of Guyana in the year 2015. This is 2018. I am preparing to leave. And I have seen the improvements, but of course, Professor Griffith is always in the news, and we have our mainstream media houses are always carrying stories on the University of Guyana, so you can judge for yourself. But today, we're talking, Professor, there are a whole lot of things going on.
Sure.
I know you did basically, apart from a press release, you're always out there, and you welcomed the students for the 2018-2019 academic year. I'd like to give you an opportunity to do that on this program.
Well, I want to welcome the two critical constituencies of our university. Welcome new students, welcome back continuing students. But the student constituency is one of two critical constituencies. Another one is the academic and administrative staff.
Okay.
And I also want to express my appreciation to the academic and administrative staff. For many of our staff, this is the first time at the university. Welcome. For many who went on sabbatical, who are coming back, welcome back. And this year continues to be a year of excitement and a year of challenge. The reality is we're managing a circumstance of a university that we're rebuilding. I call Project Renaissance. It was exciting the way we began today. We began this day, Friday the 28th, with a ribbon cutting of a brand new building at the university. The maintenance division, one of our critical parts of the enterprise to keep facilities, the grounds, not only for Turkine and Tain, but that division has responsibility for IDC in Linden, IDC in Anna Regina, IDC in New Amsterdam, IDC at Queen's College. And they were in a building that was the project office when the university campus was built in 1970. I think it's a wonderful part of our recognizing the value of upgrading not only the academic space, but those almost 100 employees, part-time and full-time, who have got to use that space. And as I said this morning, we had a wonderful ceremony where Minister of Education gave the keynote. Imagine what the maintenance worker who has to go and fix other people's places feels when he or she has to come back to that derelict place.
Yes.
So it's an opportunity now, and they said it, their morale is raised, recognition that a university places emphasis not only on the student side, but those behind-the-scenes workers who've got to keep the grounds. And I made a point this morning, which I've made elsewhere. If I'm gone for a week as Vice Chancellor, few people will know. But if the cleaning women don't do their job for a week, a lot of people will know. And so the undervaluing and underappreciation of those critical behind-the-scenes workers is something which I want to enable us to shed a light on. So we began today in a wonderful way, celebrating this new facility. $26 million funded by the government, $3 million funded by the university, enabling the maintenance folks to have a decent place in which to do their business.
VC, I'm so happy you talked about numbers, because every time you come here, and this is very, very important, you always talk, and I think this is one of the reasons, people feel a bit more comfortable and, in terms of the path that the University of Guyana is taking. You always come here and you talk about the human resource support that you're getting. I would want you to talk a bit about the financial resources, because none of this can be possible without that. And viewers, I can tell you, when you go up on campus daily, especially for this semester thus far, there's always something happening. You see cameras going up, you see buildings being torn down. So there's a buzz of activity. But even before you talk about the financial resources, I like to always ensure that the University of Guyana is staying home, in the sense that it's linked to general development in our country. And one of the things we keep talking about is a green space, green economy, protecting our environment. And people who are into construction are talking about building buildings now, creating buildings to ensure that we preserve and protect that. How is the university on a path where they're following that sort of process of requirement to ensure that our buildings, our new buildings and departments at the University of Guyana will indeed help to contribute to the protection of our green spaces?
Absolutely. And the greening has a number of dimensions to it.
Okay.
And it's not only environmentally green, but it's also economically, financially green, in that you do savings. This has not been a project only by the university. We have been partnering with the Guyana Energy Agency, for example, in creating some of that. For existing buildings, if you come on campus and you look to see what's the natural science main buildings, you'll see some solar panels. We spent, I think, $32 million of university's money recently to expand the greening component of a classroom space that is used primarily for education and humanities.
Okay.
Started a couple of years, but the capacity for the solar component is limited, to the point where power was all gone. There was no storage after 5 o'clock. So we couldn't use those classrooms. Now we're able to use those classrooms. But going forward, as we design new facilities, and I'll tell you what are some of the new facilities on the contemplation.
Okay.
Surely those will be part of things that are going to be happening. When you come on campus, coming back to a point you made, you're going to find what is now called, what used to be called a spicy dish.
Yes.
We got an $80 million gift from some Guyanese in the diaspora. I want to come back to the diaspora before I end.
Sure.
Greening will be part of that facility. If you move a little further and you turn left, you'll find the Chedijagan facility. That's another non-government funded, $11 million from a source that I will not name now, to renovate that facility. But I think not only is it true and important to say that we are embracing the overall thrust of green, part of what on the financial side I've always emphasized, and it's part of our Renaissance plan, is not looking only to the government. We've got to find ways to bring private sector, individual alums, business people here and abroad. And it is all not going to be, and it cannot be expected to be, only big money. Some people are going to give you the equivalent of, I was in New York last week coming back from vacation, got a call, matter of fact, an email from Professor Eddie Green, who is planning for a Renaissance Gala at the end of next month. I want to come back and talk about.
Sure.
Said a gentleman at Howard University, distinguished Guyanese economist, wants to be in touch. Back and forth, I was calling from the DR, wasn't getting through. He left a voicemail saying, Vice Chancellor, I have $5,000 I want to start a scholarship for University of Guyana students. You pick the students. So everybody's not going to give you $80 million. But those 5,000, those 3,000, those opening the doors to others is part of what the thrust is, to get not only the physical enhancements, but the scholarly enhancement, the professorships, things of that kind.
Okay. I'd like you to talk about the continued contribution from the diaspora, and I know this is going to bring in the gala, I think it is. And again, the reason I want to talk about this is to remind the people, and you did say it several times, that this can't be done without money. And even though you always praise your human resource support team, I would want you to praise the financial support system that you also have.
Well, part of what the reality is that we are now in the process of building that architecture for the private fundraising. Professor Paloma Mohammed, my Deputy Vice Chancellor for Philanthropy, Alumni, and Civic Engagement, is doing a wonderful job. We hired a consultant, used to be, when I was at Florida International University, the Vice President for Advancement Fundraising there. We brought him on board and doing the training, creating the architecture, creating the systems to not only go and ask for money, but also to store the money appropriately when you get it. And it's in the context of that pursuit, which is not only a domestic in Guyana pursuit, it's also reaching beyond. You know, the reality is most of our alums are not in Guyana. So if you want to connect with the alums, you've got to go where they are, which is why we established an alumni chapter in Toronto. We established an alumni chapter in London. We established one locally in Berbice. We established one locally in Georgetown. We'll be going next year to establish one in the Caribbean, starting with Barbados. And it is not only the alums abroad and locally who've got a passion to want to give. There are a number of people who did not even go to the University of Ghana, not even Guyanese, who are saying, we so treasure the opportunity of giving to education or giving to Guyana. I made a point that my wife, who is Guyanese by sociological osmosis, is a major contributor to the university. She'll be coming in November for graduation to give the first. We established an award in her name for nursing students. She's a distinguished nurse. And so when we celebrated our 30th wedding anniversary, we said to all our friends and family, don't bring any gifts. Put some money to give to the University of Guyana nursing students. So from this year, we'll be giving 2 awards, 50,000 Guyana dollars to each to 2 students, to enable them to continue their journey of nursing degree. So not only Guyanese, not only graduates, not only people at home, and the diaspora is a critical part of our pursuit.
VC, if I may jump in here and not to put a damp on it. Unfortunately, I know how our people think, and I was telling you earlier, because we have a space called social media, space called Facebook. We use that to push, and sometimes we say things and put things out there without processing, and we hurt people, and we even hurt ourselves. Again, you did talk about your wife's contribution and the fact that there will be an award in her name. Is there a way, or how do you plan to promote it and promote the fact that she has contributed, in a sense, to have like a preventative measure for people who can jump up and say, okay, and viewers, you know, I go into our Creole language here, people who are going to jump up and say, oh, because he's the Vice Chancellor, wife must get an award, there must be an award in her name. How do we, it's unfortunate that you have to do it, but how do you plan to try to eliminate the effects that comments like those are going to come out? How do you deal with that?
Part of what we're doing in the university and part of what we're doing in Guyana is not new in the academy. It's just new to Guyana.
To Guyana.
And so it is part of our objective to help educate people. We'll be putting out a press release about the enhancements in nursing. Okay. And this award is part of it. It is not an award to her. It is money that she and I and others in her name.
Good.
It's not money she's getting. It's not an award for her. She'll be giving 50,000 Guyana dollars and a gift. I think she bought a couple of stethoscopes to give to nurses.
Great.
So this is only one of the ways in which we're saying to people, you can give in the name of your mother, in the name of your father, in the name of your brother, in the name of your family. We got a gift in the name of a family, the Outar family, for example. In the United States, in Arizona, got some property in Berbice. They said, we want to give it to the university. So that's a gift. And what we're saying is whether it's the Outar family or the Nan Pasad or the Yesu Pasad or the Subraj brothers, that facility that's going to be going up in the spicy dish, $80 million from the Subraj Foundation. These are ways in which universities across the world, including in the Caribbean, raise money privately. It's just that we have got to get into that space. We're playing catch up. Major catching up. And I am and my team are working desperately to do as much as we can at home and abroad. And you know, somebody asked me the question a couple of weeks ago when I was in a radio program, am I finding the alumni response being great? And I said, I don't expect it to be great.
Ah.
I don't expect it to be great for certain practical reasons. It is a new environment for many people. But also, our university has not treated many of our graduates well as when they were students. Many people didn't have the experience that I had in the 70s of not leaving mad because of your grades or because of your classroom. We've got now to win back many people from the last 2 decades who left in frustration. We've got to be able to give them a reason to want to embrace. And we're doing it by having milestones that celebrate who we're giving. And also saying, here's an opportunity. Not only accentuating the negative. How can you contribute to the positive?
I'm happy that you said
And so
that.
people are coming forward to say, I want to help with this. I'm speaking when I was in New York on vacation, had a wonderful contribution, Skype conversation with a guy called Professor Raymond Mohammed, distinguished professor of civil engineering and environmental engineer at Wayne State University. Graduated with civil engineer, went to University of South Florida, did civil engineer, went up to Cornell, did environmental engineering. Said, Professor Griffith, I want to find a way to give back. I'm appointing him as a technical advisor to the Vice Chancellor to help on engineering and earth and environmental sciences. He's not a salary. Matter of fact, he's clear. He's going to be coming in January to find ways in which he can help. From Wayne State, he'll be helping with our curriculum, opening doors for labs. People want to give, but unless we create the environment and say to them, here are opportunities that other universities are making available. So those people who are negative Energizer bunnies, I'm saying to them, it's okay to be negative, but this is a teachable moment for you to see how you can be on board a positive journey of not only lamenting what has not been, but being intentional about what we can build differently going forward.
VC, so because again, we have some very bad, I think every country has it. We have some very bad practices and cultures that we need to try to get rid of. One of them is starting something and not finishing it, not seeing it through, no continuity. You're confident that the relationships that you're building, not only with the alumni, but other people who are not, like, for example, your wife, who are they're not necessarily products of the University of Guyana, but want to help. Are you confident that we will be able to establish longevity, so to speak? Not only just start these relationships, but even people who may come after you, sitting in your seat. 5 years after, 10 years after, we're still keeping these relationships with these people and these groups, especially the diaspora. We're still able to keep them going.
Well, there can only be a certain degree of assurance in the absence of institutionalization.
Okay.
And so partly because I don't want this to be only about Griffith, we've got to go beyond the personal, beyond the individual to the institutional, which is why we're working. We got approval for a University of Guyana foundation. A university of 55 years that doesn't have a foundation that can in perpetuity manage gifts is not a university worth pursuing. So that is one way of ensuring that there is continuity. Beyond my being here, beyond Professor Mohammed's being here, institutionalization. That is why we brought on board Sumner Hutchinson to help us get foundational training, sponsorship. And one of the realities, and I've said to the deans, there's a role for deans and heads of department, not to go and ask, but to open the doors. So yes, part of the architecture. And part of the architecture is also those alumni associations that will have their own leadership teams. Sarah Barrett is the interim president of the overall association. I don't remember the name of the person who is head of the London chapter or the Toronto chapter, but we've got to institutionalize that mechanism for giving and stewarding of giving going forward.
All right, great.
And matter of fact, on that business of institutionalization, when Professor Mohammed and I go to Washington, D.C. the 26th of October, it is for a fundraising gala. The plan there, they're calling it University of Guyana gathering of alumni and friends. And they plan to formalize that gathering into an association, moving the individual to the institutional. And that is something that has got to happen in other places.
All right, great. Viewers, if you're now tuning in, today my conversation is with the Vice Chancellor of the University of Guyana, Professor Ivelaw Griffith. And of course, we're talking all things UG, development, progress, and, things to expect and things to come. Professor, from everything that you've said, the benefit to the students, whether it be first, second, third, or final year students, the benefit should be obvious. But I would still want you to talk about that, our students, and how they can gain and how they can capitalize on everything new, everything different, everything development that is happening at the University of Guyana. I'd like you to touch on that. So it would just be a reminder, it's not Professor Griffith here talking about, because again, people will see it as Professor just talking about where the team is getting this from and who's doing what. But I'd just like you to talk about, especially the students, the now students, how can they tap into all of this and, take advantage of it to an extent for their benefit and development?
It's not just they're taking advantage, but they're contributing to it. The reality is that the university is a continuous place of communities that both take and give. And the purpose of having a community called the alumni is so that group who once were students can find ways to give. And the giving doesn't always have to be tangible money. The giving is in moral support. The giving is the sense of pride. There are many people who would tell you, I graduated 50 years, I haven't been back to my university, my alma mater, but I still feel, my daughter who's a graduate of Penn State, she hasn't been back to campus ever since she graduated in 2004. But all the sense of pride, the annual giving, even if it's $50 she gives. So part of what we're trying to cultivate in University of Guyana is not only for you to feel as a student that you should get. How can you, while you're a student and when you graduate, give back? Create a foundation on which others. And as I said this morning, the giving back doesn't always have to be personal. You may be part of a church that create a scholarship for people in your discipline. You may be part of a company that may be hiring. How can you enable people from your alma mater? You may be part of a lodge that has a scholarship fundraiser. Can some of it be? So it's about how can the student who is a prospective graduate benefit from the existing enhanced facilities, enhanced instruction, but also create a sense of pride about the institution. And institutional pride is something that translates into fundraising. And one of the hallmarks of private foundations giving is the question they always ask. How much have your alumni have alumni given? If you can demonstrate that there is an ownership, a pride, a willingness to give back by your alum, demonstrated tangibly, why should we give?
Indeed.
So it is a win-win situation for existing students, graduates to say, it's not all perfect. My experience, I've been to several universities, private and public, in the United States, not all perfect. But you come out with an experience that says you have gained, you have grown, you've been able to leverage that gain, that growth and gain in career, in financial terms. And as I said to the alum gathering and non-alum gathering last year in New York, New Jersey, and they had a gathering also this year. Some of us who went to university in the 70s didn't pay anything. We have an even stronger reason to want to give back. So whether you got education for free or you got it for dirt cheap, as is still the case, we have to have an obligation that after we graduate, there shall be continuity of others. And how do we help them?
Indeed, Professor. you and I have talked a lot, but I always like to give you this opportunity. And then, yeah, we have some time to do it. Things that I would have missed because you're the Vice Chancellor, you know what is happening. Things that I would have missed that in terms of what is to come, what can be. Well, again, this wouldn't be his final time on Facing the Nation before the end of the year. But I always like to give you this opportunity to talk about things that I would have, missed in my questioning and things that you would have forgotten. So,
Right. Well, first, I want to be invited back before graduation,
okay, great.
which is November 10 in Georgetown, and then November 17 in Berbice, to talk about some of the exciting things being planned there.
All right.
But I'll mention one now that is being a basis of some misinformation. Every university looks to guidance as to what it can do in its legal instruments.
Okay.
The legal instrument for the University of Guyana are two major instruments, University of Guyana Act and the statutes. Clearly in those instruments, University of Guyana can offer honorary degrees. And the fact that we've not done it before doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. And there's a lot of misinformation out there that because we have not awarded a PhD, we are not allowed to give honorary degrees. Not true. So one of the exciting things we'll be doing is honoring several Guyanese by saying, we want to acknowledge your contribution to this nation by making you an honorary doctorate. Think of what other Guyanese have been recognized by people elsewhere. Shiv, honorary degree from University of West Indies. And we've never honored any single Guyanese at our highest institution. We're going to change that.
Okay.
But we also are going to continue what we started last time of having not one humongous 7-8 hour graduation. We're going to break them up. At least 2 at the National Cultural Center and 1 in Berbice. So invite me back and I'll talk more about who is the valedictorian, who are the speakers. I don't want to announce the honorary degree recipients as yet until I take it to the academic board and so on. But we're also excited about the date called October 25. October 25, we're launching an Institute for Food and Nutrition Security.
That's perfect.
I am very concerned that the oil and gas excitement does not deflect us from who we essentially are, an agricultural society. And so we started a journey last year, which is going to culminate in the establishment of a formal institute to do outreach, to do education, to do research on agriculture and agriculture-related issues. Part of that, we're launching a new degree program in food science from January. It's going to see a partnership of the university and private sector businesses. It was wonderful to see the excitement by the private sector when we had a stakeholders consultation. That's an excitement. But we have several other things that we're excited about. We're doing the preparations for the new oil and gas degree programs to be launched next year, one in partnership with University of West Indies in Augustine, a master's in petroleum engineering, one in partnership with University of Trinidad and Tobago, an associate degree in petroleum engineering. But we also have a new degree on youth work being launched. It's a consortium with universities in the Commonwealth. I sent Registrar and Mr. Will Campbell from Education and Humanities to London in July. Mr. Campbell will be going back later on. A partnership with universities in Africa, Asia, Caribbean. UE and UG are the 2 ones in the Caribbean. The nation's youth are a critical constituency, not only here, but in other places. And we find that the Commonwealth took a decision years ago to find a way to empower youth work as a constituency of educational value. So we'll have a new degree in that respect. You know, the psychology program started at the diploma. The second cohort will be starting in a few weeks. We're working now towards having the master's next year. You probably know that we started a new degree in nursing at Berbice, part of the enhancement of what we did at Berbice. So there are a lot of fun things happening. But I got to hit a couple of other things. We're going to be celebrating the second Noel Maniz Distinguished Lecture. Don't know if you noticed, Sister Noel Maniz, one of our distinguished icon historians, workers, and it is part of the Renaissance effort to celebrate Guyanese academics. So we had last year, actually 2016, the first Noel Maniz Distinguished Lecture. The first C.Y. Thomas Distinguished Lecture, Norman East being in the humanities historian, C.Y. Thomas being an economist in the social sciences, and we had Ulrich Trotz, scientist, chemist. So it's going to be a periodic recognition. Another distinguished historian is coming to deliver that lecture, so Hilary Beckles, who is UWI Vice Chancellor, distinguished historian in his own right. That will be on the 22nd of October. But we also have on the 23rd a celebration of another Guyanese icon in the business world, Yesu Prasad,
Yes.
who has not only been a benefactor to the university in one area, he has funded part of our